Peace be upon you, dear friends of Heartbeats for Allah. A remarkable incident involving a Jewish man brought tears to the eyes of those who witnessed it. It was Friday and a large gathering of Muslims was present in the mosque when this Jewish individual appeared and issued a challenge. Many in attendance grew furious upon hearing his words, but the way the imam of the mosque accepted his challenge will leave you astonished. We will inform you of all the details. Before we proceed, if you are visiting this channel for the first time, remember to subscribe and click the bell notification so that you can stay updated on the latest news. Friends, it was a Friday in America, and in a local mosque, Muslims from surrounding areas had come together for congregational prayer. Immediately after the Friday prayer concluded, the imam began discussing a particular topic with those gathered. Suddenly, a Jewish man arrived. This was no ordinary man. Countless photos and videos of him had already spread across social media, revealing him to be fearless, outspoken, and quick-witted. He was known for debating people of many faiths, never once accepting defeat. With a flair for mental agility, he could dominate any discussion or challenge, triumphing repeatedly in all kinds of debates. Until that moment, however, he had never publicly uttered a single statement concerning Islam. He was sitting with friends one day when one of them remarked that Islam is a good religion, seeing that many individuals, especially young people seeking truth, have been embracing it. On hearing this claim about Islam's rising appeal, the Jewish man became irritated. He announced that he did not believe Islam to be a true religion at all. If it were, then those who follow it should demonstrate such profound depth that they could move him to accept it. If they could do so, he would also become a Muslim, although he insisted they would fail. With his friend's support, he chose that same day to visit the largest, oldest mosque in America. Many worshippers were still present there. Entering the mosque, he declared loudly that their religion was unconvincing, that they relied on false claims, and that Islam was spread solely by the sword. Those in the mosque were outraged by his provocative statements, and some struggled to restrain themselves from confronting him physically. All eyes turned toward the imam, waiting to see if he would order them to retaliate. Instead, the imam calmly asked with a polite smile whether the young man would accept Islam if convinced. The Jewish man laughed, saying he doubted anyone could persuade him otherwise, but that if he truly were impressed, he would convert. The imam responded with composure, explaining that Islam is a complete way of life supported by evidence, guiding humanity not just centuries ago, but until the day of judgment. At this, the Jewish visitor scoffed, demanding they show him a miracle, since Islam is said to be full of miraculous events that have led many to embrace it. He wanted a miracle performed on his behalf to convince him. Hearing this, the imam gently stated that miracles do not simply happen on command, but occur by God's will, demonstrating divine power to whomever he wills. After that, the young man bombarded the imam with questions, sometimes shouting or speaking rudely. Yet the imam remained unflustered. Throughout the interrogation, the imam responded kindly, never mirroring his visitor's aggression. At one point, a blind man entered the mosque, quietly found a corner, sat down, and opened the Holy Quran to begin reciting. The sight of this blind reciter startled the Jewish man. He remarked that if the Creator being worshipped were truly all-powerful, why had this devout individual not been gifted with sight? The imam told him not to focus on the blindness itself, but rather on that man's unwavering faith and contentment. Even though he had never seen the wonders of creation or beheld God, his belief was arguably stronger than many with sight. This unwavering devotion illustrated that real closeness to God is measured by one's heart rather than physical capabilities. The Jewish man eventually departed, still unconvinced but visibly unsettled by the imam's calm demeanor. That same evening, he went to sleep and experienced a vivid dream. He found himself in a gorgeous place with multiple doors. One gleamed like gold, and he approached it eagerly, wanting to enter. As soon as his hand reached for it, a brilliant light flared up, warning him not to touch that door, for only those in possession of divine guidance could pass through it. Unless he came bearing that guidance, he would be denied entry. Undeterred, he attempted to force his way forward, but instead felt himself sinking into the ground. Overwhelmed by intense heat, he feared he would burn away completely, when suddenly a hand appeared in front of him. Though he did not recognize whose hand it was, he seized it desperately. Pulled from the hole, he clung to his rescuer in terror. Upon looking up, He was startled to see it was the very imam he had challenged earlier. Jolted by this realization, he woke up in a state of shock, sweating and struggling to breathe. Friends, this unexpected dream proved transformative for the Jewish man, who had so fervently insisted that Islam could never convince him. The next day, he returned to the mosque with tears in his eyes, confessing that he had found the truth he had previously denied. He told the imam he regretted wasting years adhering to the wrong faith. Wishing to remain astray no longer, he recited the Islamic declaration of faith right there in front of the congregation. In time, other members of his family and some of his closest friends also grew curious, asking questions about the religion he had once belittled so aggressively. Several of them, moved by his experience and by what they learned of Islamic teachings, ended up accepting Islam themselves. These scenes, now spreading widely across social media, feature this very young man declaring his newfound faith in front of large audiences. He asserts that in his dream, he also glimpsed a luminous being before seeing the imam, whom he now calls his mentor. He vows to dedicate his life to obeying the Quran's commands and to inviting others to the religion so they too can discover authentic guidance. Strikingly, the same person who once viewed multiple faiths with condescension and who attempted to criticize Islam with special zeal has emerged as a staunch supporter and public advocate for it. As word of this profound event spread, the local community engaged in lively discussions about the factors that can guide someone to truth. Many people spoke of how faith often thrives when someone approaches a religion with sincere curiosity rather than contempt. Those who had been in the mosque during the confrontation recalled how near the situation came to turning violent. They emphasized that the imam's refusal to stir up anger was a decisive reason tempers did not boil over. They also commended the unwavering devotion of the blind man, whose example silently reinforced the notion that genuine faith transcends material limitations. Each new detail of the story prompted further questions, such as whether miracles still occur in modern times and how divine guidance can manifest so powerfully in a dream. The Jewish man's own friends, who had accompanied him when he brazenly insulted Islam, expressed amazement at his metamorphosis. They remembered his mocking laughter and combative stance, and they found it difficult to reconcile that image with the man who was now eager to learn, reciting verses from the Quran and expressing gratitude for his spiritual awakening. Over time, some of these friends, too, sought explanations for various Quranic teachings. Their inquisitiveness demonstrated the domino effect that a single heartfelt conversion can set in motion. People who once stood shoulder to shoulder with him in ridiculing faith now displayed genuine curiosity, noting that nothing short of a profound revelation could have made him so determined to change. While some skeptics still insisted on searching for hidden agendas or staged publicity, numerous first-hand witnesses quickly dismissed such rumors, claiming they had observed his sincerity both before and after the dream. They described the transformation as unmistakable. Gone was the argumentative skeptic, replaced by someone quietly resolute, no longer motivated by pride, but by a desire to worship sincerely. Social media debate raged on. Some viewers from distant places responded with prayers and well wishes, while others demanded more proof. Yet the man himself did not seem concerned with convincing random online critics. He cared only about deepening his knowledge of Islam, praying regularly, and assisting others who were exploring the same path. In the weeks that followed, the newly converted man played an active role in community gatherings. He shared his story in small group discussions, detailing how shocked he was to see the imam in his dream, pulling him out of the fiery pit. He explained to onlookers that his nightmare felt so vivid, so truly terrifying, that upon waking he could not deny its significance. Each retelling inspired new reflections among listeners, many of whom admitted that they too had been drifting spiritually without realizing it. Hearing that a short conversation and an enlightening dream could pave the way for such a radical shift, they wondered about their own potential for growth in faith. In public, the former doubter became a living reminder that guidance can arise in the most unexpected ways. People remarked on the imam's peaceful smile and tireless patience, remembering how he never once retaliated against the outburst of insults. They noted that it was precisely this soft approach that had succeeded in melting hardened hearts. Arguments and anger, they conceded, often result in little beyond further alienation. In contrast, gentle truth can penetrate even the densest layers of prejudice, given the right conditions. Consequently, more non-Muslims visited the mosque, whether to witness the Friday prayers or to engage in conversations with the imam. Among those deeply moved by the story was the same blind man whose presence had sparked so many questions. Reportedly, he remained blissfully unaware of how pivotal his silent recitation had been, simply expressing gratitude for being permitted to study the Quran at all. He refused to consider himself special, even though countless believers credited him with highlighting the essence of faith. According to those who spoke with him, his attitude was one of humility, insisting that anyone, regardless of eyesight, could recognize the truth if they approached it with sincerity. For him, devotion to God was a privilege, not a chore. Gradually, the community realized that the story's lessons extended far beyond one individual's conversion. The incident compelled Muslims to reflect on whether they had truly embodied the patient, compassionate spirit of Islam in their own lives. It caused non-Muslims to reevaluate preconceived notions about a faith often maligned in various media outlets. Even casual observers, who encountered the story through the social platforms, felt a stir in their hearts upon hearing that a man who once reviled Islam had become one of its staunchest advocates.